We all want to keep our children safe, but what exactly does that mean? I thought I knew until 2015. That's when I started working as a clinical therapist in a group home for kids in a foster care system. I thought I would only be dealing with girls not getting along with one another or not adjusting to their new families, but I soon found out I was wrong. I was working with a 14-year-old who was always running away from the group home, never around long enough to get help. I thought she was out partying or hanging out with her friends, but I asked one of my colleagues, and what I heard was, oh, I think she's away with a pimp again. Now, if that sounds crazy to you, that was my reaction too. But I was the only one, because all of my new colleagues suspected that she was a victim of human trafficking, which completely caught me by surprise. At that point, I had a completely distorted view of what human trafficking was and who was at risk from it. But as I learned more, I started seeing some of the same signs of many of the other kids. And here are the three most common: running away, being secretive about partners or friends, and having some money that they can't explain. Nothing that sounded too out of the ordinary for any teenager who's a bit rebellious or going through a difficult time. But now I found out there could be something much darker behind those behaviors. And then I learned about one of these girls being raped in a parking lot, not being helped by anyone around her. And I decided we had to do better. Human trafficking affects thousands of children each year in the US alone, but very few parents realize it can happen to their families too because they don't even know what human trafficking is. How can we protect our kids from something we know nothing about? While we believe our homes are safe havens, thousands of children find themselves in dangerous situations each year. So, what is a primary risk factor for human trafficking? Well, you see, the problem here is that most of us think about human trafficking in the wrong way, if we think about it at all. Before I started working with kids, all I knew about human trafficking came from Hollywood. Back then, I thought a pimp was someone wearing a hat, a big fur coat, and walking with a cane just to look cool. I thought human trafficking was like in the movie Taken, where American girls are kidnapped by a gang of Eastern European criminals and auctioned off to the highest bidder. And that's not even the crazy stuff you hear out there. There are lots of rumors that human traffickers use zip ties to mark the cars of people that they want to kidnap, that they give people roses injected with drugs, and they drive around neighborhoods in white unmarked vans. I mean, I even heard that they were putting trackers in Victoria's Secret bras and following women home. I know this sounds ridiculous, but it's nothing to laugh about. It is estimated that every 2 minutes, a child is trafficked for sexual exploitation in the United States. It's hard to find reliable numbers because most of this goes unreported, but there are studies that suggest that the numbers could be substantially higher than that. And then I heard that a pimp is anyone exploiting people sexually, and they could be found in all areas of society. Not too long ago, for example, a really famous R&B singer was convicted of human trafficking. And this is a guy who's won Grammys and sold millions of albums. The issue is real, it's widespread, and it's not restricted to any one community. The average victim is 15 years old, and they can come from every socioeconomic group, race, gender, and religion across the United States. This is everyone's problem. When I talk to people about this, something that I often hear is, well, that sounds like a real danger for foster kids, but kids growing up in a nice, stable home, they don't have to worry about that. And I used to think that too, until I met Anna. Anna was a middle child who got little attention growing up. And most of the attention she did get was because she had gotten herself into trouble or she was doing something wrong. She always felt like she was a black sheep, like she never fit in. One night, her father woke her up in the middle of the night and he said, "I told you to wash the dishes and you didn't." "What are you talking about? When I went to bed, the kitchen was clean." "Don't you lie to me, you." And he called her a word no father should ever call a daughter. In the morning, when her dad was out to work and her mom was out with one of her brothers, she ran away. She didn't have money for food or a place to stay. She took a ride, accepted some help, and before she knew it, she had gotten herself into a situation she couldn't get out of. Anna was 17 when she was trafficked, and it took her years to escape. This can happen to anyone. Is human trafficking more common with kids from the foster care system or those who didn't grow up in a nice, stable home? Sure. But it does take more than a roof over their head, food at the table, and even two parents living together to make our families immune from this issue. Sometimes the only opportunity a human trafficker needs is an unhappy kid having a difficult relationship with their parents. And which family doesn't have that at some point? So while we think about all of these Hollywood scenarios that would never happen to our children, we miss the most common way in which it does happen. I know this because of what happened to me when I was 12. Back then, I spent a lot of time chatting with my friends on AOL Instant Messenger. And for all y'all young folks out there, that was the way we communicated with the world during my time. I developed a crush on a boy I met online, a boy that I never met in person. We talked about our day-to-day and how even though I love being that cheerleader and wearing that black and yellow uniform, I was a bit nerdy and introverted. My mom would tell me, "Ain't nothing wrong with you, girl. You just fine just the way you are." But I never felt like I fit in. I told him everything I was up to, and he was such a great listener. Over time, we chatted more and more, and eventually he started asking me to meet him in person. He'd say things like, "I'm coming down to California with my family soon. You want to hang out?" I'd respond, "Yeah, I'll ask my mom." She'd tell me, "Sure, as long as I can meet him and his family." Then I think, great. Now all I need for her is to get positive vibes and we'll be good. But each time I did, something strange happened. He'd disappear, and for months, I wouldn't hear from him. Then suddenly, he'd just show up online again, and the same pattern would just repeat. This happened over the course of many years. Only after I started working with kids who were trafficked, it dawned on me what he was trying to do. I believe I was speaking to a human trafficker, someone grooming me without my own knowledge, which happens to thousands of children every day. People worry about kidnapping, but most of the danger is online, on dating sites and social media like Facebook and Instagram. Nearly half of all children online have been approached by someone they thought was trying to manipulate them or had someone they didn't know ask them for nude pictures. And this is happening to 9-year-olds. We need to realize that human trafficking isn't this dramatic movie plot, but a risk to everyday families. It can affect every community. It can reach into stable homes. It doesn't matter how much money you have, where you come from, or the color of your skin. The main risk factor these kids have in common is this: they are alone or they feel alone. They don't see their parents as people they can trust, people that they can share their lives with. They are looking for a connection they don't have at home. So here's how to make sure your kids don't become victims of this either. In this digital world, anyone in the world can have access to your child. So it's important to protect them from online grooming. And there's many ways you can do this. You can friend your kids on social media, install parental control apps or software on their devices, tell them you forbid certain chats and websites, create rules about their internet usage, or you can even have direct access to their accounts. Now, all of these approaches can work, but you might not want to play Big Brother in your kids' online life. Plus, let's be honest, if they really wanted to do something you didn't really want them to do, they'll find a way. So whatever you decide to do, I suggest you start by asking them questions like these. What would you do if you met someone online and they asked you to go somewhere and hang out? What if they asked you for pictures? What if they offered you money? Or what if they asked you where you lived and who you live with? Now, their answers will tell you how aware they are of these dangers and what their instincts for dealing with these things are like. There's a good chance that some of what they say will be far from ideal, but resist the temptation to give them a hard time about it. Instead of judging them, taking control, or telling them what to do, Focus on making them feel like they can talk to you about anything. Because if they believe that they're going to get in trouble, they're not going to trust you with stuff like this anymore. But if they believe you're there for them, there's a much better chance they'll come to you in case anything ever happens. Just like I did with my mom. But I was lucky. Because without that relationship, I wouldn't be fighting human trafficking now. I'd been a victim of it. Because human trafficking is not like what we see in Hollywood. The way we fight it is not with fists and guns. We do it by loving our kids, by talking to them, by letting them know we've got their backs no matter what. And when we do this, we're not only protecting our children from human trafficking, we're building much closer and stronger relationships to the people we care about most in this world. Isn't that what we all want anyway?